With her unimpeachable record in the sector, the Chancellor will know that economics is known as the dismal science. And as a member of the Business and Trade Committee, I've spoken directly with businesses one-to-one, and rather than second-hand statistics, the mood is indeed dismal. After her dud budget, can she think again, go back on this desperate jobs tax? The Chancellor is in danger of becoming tough on growth and tough on the causes.
Rachel Reeves just got drop kicked on by MPs, and it's turning into a full-blown political meltdown. 1 minute she's standing tall, confidently flexing like she's got everything under control. The next, MPs are coming at her like she just insulted the Queen's corgis. The backlash? Deafening. The reactions? Unhinged. And there's Reeves, standing there looking like a Wi-Fi router that suddenly lost a connection. So what on earth did she do to get Parliament absolutely foaming at the mouth? Buckle up, because this one's a train wreck you won't want to miss.
Debbie Abrahams.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I recognise the difficulties that my right honourable friend is facing in terms of fiscal challenges and so on that she inherited, and I also support the reforms that my right honourable friend, the Work and Pension Secretary, has set out. But all the evidence is pointing to the fact that the cuts to health and disability benefits will lead to increased poverty, including severe poverty.
Before we dive in, you smash that like button and subscribe, because trust me, you don't want to miss this one. Rachel Reeves, the woman who somehow manages to get more attention for her bizarre antics than for any actual political achievement. Recently, she found herself caught in one of those oops, did I just say that? Moments that has British MPs on edge, questioning if she even has the faintest regard for the citizens she's supposed to represent. And hey, if you've been living under a rock, or maybe you've been successfully avoiding the UK's never-ending political chaos, let me catch you up. Rachel Reeves is an MP who, despite her best efforts, just can't seem to stop slamming her foot straight into her own mouth. But this time, she's gone and done it. Big guy. She's crossed a line that even her fiercest voice supporters are now forced to admit was a colossal blunder.
Was asked a specific question. I did not, first of all, hear the previous interview of the Chief Secretary, and so the question to me was put about pocket money, but it's not a right analogy, and apologies have already been made.
Okay. Rachel Reeves' economic incompetence is mind-blowing.
It's quite a punchy title, but you know, then again, it's true. You know, and the irony is, I mean, that is a lady who has an economics degree, PPE, Politics, Philosophy and Economics from Oxford, and a master's in economics from the London School of Economics. So she must know something about economics. Everything we do should be to maximise the best possible outcome for as many people as possible.
In a jaw-dropping display of how tone deafness, Rachel somehow managed to alienate, insult, and flat-out disrespect the very people she's meant to represent, the British public. You'd think a politician, especially one who's been around long enough to dodge a scandal or two, would have figured out the delicate art of saying nothing when there's nothing good to say. But no, not Rachel. She did what Rachel does best, opened her mouth, let the words fly out, and then acted all surprised when they landed in a mess. And when they landed hard. Her little slip-up sent like shockwaves through the UK Parliament and rippled across the entire internet. MPs, they weren't having it.
The Chief Secretary to the Treasury has apologised for the clumsy language that he used.
All right, let's break this down. First, why did Rachel Reeves find herself caught in the state firestorm? It wasn't just a tiny misstep. Oh no. Rachel, in her infinite wisdom, decided to take a page from the How to Win Friends and Influence People handbook. Except it seems she completely skipped the being nice to people chapter. And what, you ask, was the cherry on top of this political disaster? The word she used to describe British citizens and their, shall we say, behavior. The tone, dismissive. The delivery, flawless in its condescension. She didn't just alienate the working class. She practically threw them under the proverbial bus and ran it over a few times, and then, just for good measure, backed it up.
Okay, so you're making an apology too for the comments that you made on the other.
I don't think I made the same comments, but the analogy of comparing pocket money and personal independence payments is clearly not right.
To really grasp just how bad this was, picture someone completely detached From the struggles of everyday people, someone so wrapped up in a bubble that you can practically feel the distance. Well, Rachel Reeves somehow managed to capture all of that in one sentence. Yes, in just one sentence, she did the impossible. She disrespected the foundation of the UK. You'd think with her position, she'd understand the weight of her words. You'd think as a seasoned MP, she'd think twice before dismissing the genuine concerns of the people she's supposed to represent. But no, the only thing Rachel had on her mind was how clever she could sound while completely ignoring the reality of the average citizen's day-to-day life. The irony, it's so thick, you could cut it with a knife.
And then you became Chancellor on the 5th of July, and the budget came out at the end of October. And I was very struck by the difference between the report that the Office for Budget Responsibility put out last October and the one that was published last week with your spring statement. In those 5 months, their forecast for inflation this year has gone from 2.6% to 3.2%. Obviously, you highlighted the fact that their growth forecast has halved from 2% to 1%.
What do you make of Reeves' "there is no alternative" line?
I don't think it's a clever thing to say. I think if you've got Margaret Thatcher's chops and authority, and if the public buy into the idea that you're the person or the woman to sort it out, which enough of them did when she was using the phrase, then it might be a winner. But I don't think Rachel Reeves is the kind of politician who can carry that off. It sounds lofty and arrogant, and I think people feel that about this government anyway, because it's like that way. It's like that in its general disposition.
All right, let's break down this mess, because Rachel didn't just offend a handful of people. Oh no, she went full throttle, sending waves of anger and through the UK Parliament. It started off, well, as innocently as anything can when a politician opens their mouth and starts saying things they absolutely should not say. Rachel, perhaps feeling a bit too cozy in her political skin, decided to talk about how difficult it is for politicians to do their jobs when the public isn't quite on board with their brilliant plans. Cue the eye rolls from literally everyone who's had to live in the real world for even 5 minutes. But then, boom, Rachel hit us with the line that no one saw coming. She casually dismissed our British citizens, those hard-working souls who pay their taxes, deal with the endless woes of the economy, and struggle to make ends meet like they were a minor inconvenience. She suggested that the frustration people felt with the government's policies was somehow their own fault. Because of course, when things go wrong in a country, it's always the fault of the people who are actually living through it, right? They're not suffering because of a broken system or cow failed policies. No, they're suffering because they just don't get it. It's their misunderstanding. That's the real issue.
You know, this is also awful April. Bills are going up for households across the country. We've got tariffs that are no doubt being announced later today. I just wondered to what extent you recognise now that business confidence and consumer confidence took a real hit after your budget in October.
Well, you started by talking about the IMF, and the IMF were very supportive of what we did in the budget last year to put the public finances back on a firm footing, and they were also very supportive of the fiscal rules that we announced, both to bring stability to the public finances but also to unlock private investment. So I was very appreciative of the support both from Kristalina Georgieva and Gita Gopinath at the IMF for the work that we are doing to bring stability back to...
The worst part, she actually thought she was making a strong point. The sheer confidence with which she dismissed the concerns of everyday citizens was almost impressive, if it wasn't so clueless. It wasn't just a political misstep. This was a masterclass in self-sabotage. She didn't just alienate a few disgruntled voters. Oh no, she managed to enrage an entire nation in record time. Even MPs, who, let's face it, can't agree on the color of the sky, were united in their outrage. Social media, it exploded, and faster than a microwave burrito, with hashtags calling for her resignation, trending within minutes. Political commentators, journalists, even former allies, all left shaking their heads, callous in disbelief. It was like watching someone try to put out a fire with a pato bucket of gasoline out and a prayer. And the press, they had a field day, running headline after headline about her out-of-touch chat comments, satirical programs. They lined up to roast her like a Christmas turkey.
I absolutely accept that there are costs of any policy, whether it's on spending or tax, but there are also costs of irresponsibility. And just imagine if last October I hadn't have taken the action that we did, to put the public finances on a firm footing, to put more money into the NHS, which has seen for 5 months in a row NHS waiting lists fall, and 2 million additional appointments in the National Health Service, reducing those record waiting lists that were bequeathed to us by the previous government.
Just when you thought it couldn't get worse, she'd doubled down. Instead of offering a simple strategic apology, Rachel tried to explain why the people she'd just insulted were actually still wrong. The cow backlash was instant. This wasn't just a PR nightmare. It was a full-scale implosion. Political analysts are already calling it one of the biggest self-inflicted disasters like in recent history. Reeves thought she was leading a movement. Turns out she was just leading herself straight off a cliff. Now, let's talk about the who Rachel was slamming here. The working class people of the UK. The very same people who, make the country tick. Who get up every morning to do the jobs that keep the wheels turning but barely leave enough for a pint at the pub. These are the people keeping the economy alive, not Rachel Reeves or any of her colleagues. And yet, she had the cagall to act like their concerns were just an annoying background noise to her big political ideas.
The whole House recognises the authenticity of the Right Honourable Lady's backstory, her pride in being a carer, and indeed in her recent elevation. By contrast, in June, the Chief Constable of Northamptonshire was sacked for misrepresenting his CV. And just last month, Tanya Nasri, the nurse, was imprisoned for 5 years for doing the same. Does the Right Honourable Lady agree with me that such serious consequences are right and just?
Oh, but wait, it gets even better. Because as with every politician who somehow manages to open their mouth and insert us both feet, Rachel Reeves didn't stop there. Oh no. Instead of offering a quick apology, taking responsibility for her tone-deaf just comments, or even saying, hey, I got caught up in the heat of the moment, she decided to double down. She didn't even pretend to care about the backlash she was getting. In fact, she seemed completely oblivious to the massive damage she just inflicted on her own reputation. You know that moment when someone says something completely outrageous and then tries to play it off like it didn't just implode their entire public image? Rachel did that. And trust me, the political fallout from this is something not even her team can spin in her favor.
Suggestion is a wealth tax, which would take time and obviously be complicated to implement. What's the Treasury's thoughts on a wealth tax at the minute?
Oh, I'd just say on that, in the budget last year, we increased two broad types of tax. We increased national insurance on business, which we've already discussed. We also increased taxes on the most wealthy. The reforms to the non-dom tax status will bring in £12 billion during the course of this part.
Here's the thing about politicians. They have this special gift for putting their foot in their mouths. The ability to say just the wrong thing at just the wrong time is practically an art form. But Rachel Reeves, she took it to a whole new level. Not only did she disrespect us, the British citizens she's supposed to represent, but she also managed to unite people across party lines. All of them throwing shade her way. It was like watching an Olympic event, except instead of athletes, it was MPs from all sides of the aisle throwing their hands up in the air, collectively asking, did she really just say that? And let's be clear, MPs didn't just lightly criticize her, they torched her like a forgotten Sunday roast, one after another. They took turns dismantling her argument, shredding her credibility, and basically treating her like a piñata stuffed with bad decisions. The chamber, it wasn't just heated, it was a full-scale political inferno. And Rachel was standing right in the middle of it, looking like she just realized her PR team was out sick that day. At this point, Rachel Reeves should do the right thing and resign.
Rachel Reeves should do the right thing and resign.
Oh, good Lord. We've all lied on our CV. I think she just needs to fess up.
It's not a question of lying on the CV, Nick. This is a case of deliberately misrepresenting your experience. I don't believe for one instance that Rachel Reeves is an economist and has been anywhere near the formulation of any kind of financial policy during her work experience. I think she's totally unqualified for this job, and I think she should do the right thing, which is to resign.
And the worst part, she had options. She could have backtracked, played it off as a misunderstanding, or even just pretended to care. But no, instead, she doubled down, digging herself into a hole so deep she might as well apply for citizenship in Australia. The moment she opened her mouth, it was game over. The arrogance, the dismissiveness, the absolute refusal to acknowledge that the very people she was trashing were, in fact, the people she was supposed to serve. It was all just too much. Social media? Oh, it went nuclear. Hashtags popped up faster than Rachel could refresh her notifications. People weren't just angry, they were dragging her like a broken shopping cart on cobblestones. Memes flooded the internet, mocking her tone-deaf response, comparing her to every out-of-touch politician in history. And the UK public, they were having an absolute field day. News outlets ran clips on repeat. Pundits analyzed every syllable, and it quickly became the biggest political faceplant of the year.
These taxes, by their nature, fall on more wealthy people.
Meanwhile, MPs who had been waiting for their chance to take a shot at her came in guns blazing. They weren't just calling her out, they were roasting her to a crisp, listing every single instance where she'd shown the zero connection to Raiskai, to real people. It was a takedown so brutal, even to reality TV producers, accounts were taking notes. This wasn't just a bad day at the office. This was a full-blown political collapse, and Reeves was right in the middle of it, watching her approval ratings sink like on Titanic. And here's the real kicker. This isn't going away. Apology or not, the damage is done. The UK public never forgets a political train wreck, and MPs, they're just getting warmed up.
On that, change does need to happen. But I guess it's the timing and the scale that people are questioning. You commissioned Sir Charlie Mayfield to do a review into this. The spring statement measures come ahead of that, so that feels, I'm sure you'll come to address that. And also the main driver of the saving seems to be restricting eligibility for PIP.
So what happened after the backlash? Did Rachel apologize? Did she take responsibility, Shaddy, for her comments? Did she at least attempt to show some humility? Of course not. Instead, we got the classic politician move. A half-hearted attempt at unclarifying her words, but with absolutely no real acknowledgement of the harm she caused. It was the equivalent of saying, "Oops, my bad," without actually meaning it. If there's one thing we've learned from this entire debacle, it's that Rachel Reeves doesn't really understand the gravity of what she said, nor does she seem to care about the fact that she's completely alienated a massive chunk of the population she claims to represent.
I do think that she's out of her depth. I remember that first budget, and it was all about how she was the first female chancellor. But being the first female whatever is not an achievement if you're doing a bad job. And it's the people that you're working for that should give a verdict on whether you've achieved something or not. The mistakes that she made in that budget are what she's trying to fix now with the emergency budget that we're getting tomorrow. This is not something that's reacting to world events. She made errors, problems have been caused, and now she's...
But this whole mess isn't just about one politician saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. It's about the ongoing trend of Chowda politicians, us forgetting who they're actually working for. And it's about people like Rachel Reeves, who despite their fancy titles and offices, have no real understanding of the struggles everyday citizens face. She was too busy trying to make political points to remember that her job is to serve the public, not treat them like they're some kind of inconvenience. And if there's one thing the UK doesn't need right now, it's more politicians who think they can get away with insulting their constituents without facing the consequences.
Rachel Reeves must be feeling pretty pleased with herself, having stuck to her 2 arbitrary fiscal rules in her spring statement. Well done, Rachel, sticking to those fiscal rules. Very economy, really earning your recent pay rise. But the thing is, austerity measures, cutting welfare, cutting the public sector, and trying to just balance the books as quickly as possible, that's not the way you fix things in this country.
In the end, Rachel Reeves isn't just in hot waters. She's in a full-blown political sauna, and there's no way out. Where the backlash will continue. The mockery will persist, and MPs from all sides will use this moment as a shining example of what happens when you forget where you came from and who you're supposed to represent. Will she recover from this? Well, considering the level of condescension and disregard she displayed, that's highly doubtful. But in the world of politics, who knows? Maybe she'll be back, trying to spin this into a growth moment, convincing us all that she somehow meant to disrespect the very people she's supposed to represent. If that doesn't make you roll your eyes into oblivion, I don't know what will.